How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. I'm excited. It's State of Play Day. For the first topic, we're breaking down everything Sony showed off. After that, we're talking about how the PS5's lifespan has been confirmed, and honestly, if you bought one, you shouldn't be worried. And then we're going to talk about some new footage that shows Unreal Engine 5 can be good. So let's jump into the first news story here and talk about that amazing state of play. I have not looked at Twitter or anything. Maybe everyone hates it, but for me, that was a really good state of play. I'll start out with the biggest one first, Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. This is coming to PC and PS5 day one. It's a mashup of Marvel and Arc System Works. They're behind the game Dragon Ball Fighters. I don't know how to say it, but basically they're a really good fighting game studio. I forget their main actual franchise, but I played a ton of it on Vita and I thought Fighter Z was awesome, even though I'm not a massive Dragon Ball Z fan. It's going to be sweet to see this get like a full first party budget where it's a partnership between Sony, Marvel, and Arc System Works. All the designs look sweet, like they're all Japanese anime inspired. Iron Man looked like Kamen Rider, which I thought was awesome, and he's more of a mech. They really focused hard on this because, you know, fighting games aren't necessarily the biggest thing in the world unless you're talking about like Super Smash Bros. Melee, I guess, or something like that. But Sony is clearly trying to take over the fighting game world because they also announced their own fight stick, Project Defiant. It looks really cool. I know you can use fight sticks for games like that Ninja Gaiden one or 2D side scrollers, and it's a better experience overall. I'll definitely pick that up, but this is all tying in to their Evo ownership and everything, and I think that's smart. The best thing is, not only did the game look good, but no one had it on their radar, which is just what you want to see from a state of play. Like, they went over so many games, but that was such a good one to end the show on. Like, I'm really impressed. I hope you could tell. I know I said I'm going to focus on just a few games, but there were so many great ones. It's going to be a long segment. I'm sorry. Lumines started the show from the developers of Tetris Effect. Lumines used to be published by Ubisoft. It was amazing on PSP and Vita. That was my favorite Vita launch title. So to see it get the Tetris Effect treatment, that's going to be really cool. Capcom showed up with Pragmata. This was shown off a long time ago and then went silent. People thought it got canceled. They even had a note at the end that said they're sorry and it's actually coming in 2026. It looks like a futuristic Resident Evil game. Speaking of Resident Evil, the vibe of like the guy carrying the little girl who's like an AI on his back reminded me of the first Resident Evil movie where the Red Queen was the guy's daughter. I don't know why it reminded me of that, but I'm always down for a new Capcom IP. It reminds me kind of Lost Planet a little bit. I don't know. It seems really cool and it's not that far away. Romeo is a Dead Man looked awesome to me. It's a violent third-person shooter with sword mechanics. It's from Grasshopper Manufacturer and Suda51. It looked really polished for what they usually make. Like, there's a jank charm to a lot of their stuff, like No More Heroes 3 on the Switch. I loved it, but it didn't look or run very good. This looks like they're kind of stepping up their gameplay, sort of like Shadows of the Damned, so I'm into that. I mean, it was so violent. How could I not be? Silent Hill F is coming out September 25th. You guys know I love horror. I love Silent Hill. I like that it's like this Japanese schoolgirl type story. I love J-horror, so I'm really into that. I'm worried that the combat or lack thereof is going to make it a little boring for me because I'm kind of sick of those games, but it looks really good, honestly, so I'll give it a shot. I mean, it looks awesome enough to at least try. I thought they were teasing a new Castlevania and I got really excited, but I'm still just as excited to know that it's Bloodstained 2. I love Bloodstained. I played it on the Switch. I waited for them to update it so it would run at 30 FPS. I like that they're going for less of like a waifu vibe with the main character and they're going for that dark Christianity vibe with it. It looked really cool and like it's incorporating some fighting game elements. That would be a good game for the PlayStation Fight Stick, honestly. That's coming out in 2026. I wish that was coming out sooner. I feel like you announced that game a little bit closer till its release, but that's really just because I'm excited for it. The long rumored Final Fantasy Tactics remake is real. That's coming out in September as well. I've been waiting for this. I just played the original Final Fantasy Tactics on my Steam Deck. It was up-res, so it was the original PS1 version up-resed. I was like, man, they got to remake this. If you've never played Final Fantasy Tactics and you think you're good at tactics games, it's going to mop the floor with you. That is one of the hardest games I've ever played, but everything from the story to the art style to the gameplay is great. I've been waiting for a modern port. Very excited about that. I'm just going to be real though. I'll probably play that on my Steam Deck. That weird walking fighting game Baby Steps is coming out September 8th. I think that looks really funny and good. Like, I'm really into those games that are just deep mechanics driven games. The humor might be getting a little out of fashion, so it's good that it's finally coming out. They showed that at a State of Play a long time ago, so it's nice to see that they're actually finishing that game and releasing it. I like how many indie games Sony showed off. There was big stuff to match it though, which was the key. I was really surprised to see Neo 3, and the demo is available now. That's coming out in February of 2026. They're kind of going for the Elden Ring vibe with it. So the first ones were more Dark Souls-like, where it was linear and had specific levels. They said this one's going to have big open areas. I gotta wait and see just because of the performance of Rise of the Ronin. I think they're pushing out games too quick. Hopefully Rise of the Ronin got less people working on it than Neo 3, and this one comes out and really impresses people, but I'm gonna try out the demo later today on my PS5. I'll let you know in the next video how it runs. Neo's cool. I like Dark Souls a little bit more, but I've always been a Neo fan. The second one is like Diablo on crack, so it's hard for me not to love it. There was a really cool pirate game called Sea of Remnants. I couldn't tell if it was like multiplayer or single player, open world, linear, whatever. I saw ship combat, I saw sword combat. It looked kind of JRPG inspired. Who knows? Like, I'm curious about that game. I feel like the trailer could have done a little bit better of a job showing off what it actually is, but maybe that was the point. I'm always in for a pirate game though. I've been waiting on the remake of Black Flag that has not materialized, but I'll play this in the meantime for sure. Then the last big game, the one that I was the most excited to see, was 007 First Light. I mean, if you ask me between Mission Impossible and James Bond, I'm going Mission Impossible every time. Love Tom Cruise, love the American aspect of it, but I am a fan of James Bond. This just looks like Uncharted, man. Like, it's a James Bond origin story. They had the Aston Martin driving around. They had the Omega watches. He's earning the number. I think that's a great idea for a game, and I don't know if it's ever been done in the movies because I've only seen a lot of the more modern ones, starting with like Pierce Brosnan. I've seen GoldenEye and stuff. I love James Bond, but just the thing that sold me on this was that it looks like the return of Uncharted. It looks incredible. Graphically speaking, it's on par with Hitman 3, I would say, which is good. It's not on the graphics level of Naughty Dog, but just from a gameplay perspective, it looked like a really cool third-person, story-driven, linear style action game. Like, you know, the classic stuff we used to play in the PS3 and PS4 era. I'm really curious to see how IOI is going to pull this off, because most of their stuff is open-ish area and freeform with Hitman, but clearly they've banked a bunch of money from Hitman. They've got a great license with 007. They say it's coming out in 2026. I got a feeling it's going to be delayed just a little bit into next year, but I didn't know what to expect from that game, and if I could have guessed or just dreamed up what I wanted, it would be an Uncharted style origin story for James Bond. It looked really cool. That was all the games that really stood out to me, but there were a ton more, like Metal Gear Solid 3. There were a bunch of indie games. I mean, there was something here for everyone, which I think is the best way to handle a State of Play. Obviously, it's June. This is when they would have done their E3 showcase, but I mean, from the first party, they're talking about a July showcase for Ghost of Yotei. I think that's smart. It's coming out very soon. You've got the new Marvel game, which is them putting a lot of money and marketing and energy into a fighting game. James Bond, like so much stuff. And it was all varied and different. This was a great State of Play. This is how I wish all of them were, because if they're like this, that's what's going to drive my hype, man. Like, I haven't been so excited after a State of Play, honestly, since the Resident Evil 4 one. So let's jump into the second news story here and talk about the lifespan of the PlayStation 5. This is all coming from a recently re-earthed interview with Hideaki Nishino that came out and kind of flew under everyone's radar, but he basically spelled out how they're going to handle the PlayStation 5 once the PlayStation 6 comes out, and how you react to this is basically going to be dependent on which camp you're in. You know, there's one camp that's like, I'm buying the latest greatest tech and hardware. I bought the PS5 day one, I bought the PS5 Pro day one, I'm going to buy the PS6 day one, and I expect Sony to show up with first party games that are only available on the PlayStation 6, but in addition to that, they'll push to the absolute limit with those games. They'll make me feel justified I'm buying this console, and I will see a noticeable improvement in each and every single game that releases from Sony on that console. That's totally reasonable because that's how it always worked up until the PS4 generation and PS5 generation where they did a lot of cross-gen games. Then there's the other camp that are like, well, I want this hardware to last a long time. If I buy a PlayStation 5 right now, I don't want it to be only good for the next 2 years. I want Sony to do what they did in the PS4 generation and continue to support the PS5 well into the PS6 generation until, you know, they can't make games that support it anymore. They will continue to make games even after they can support it, and you'll get busted ports that don't run right. But there will be a grace period for sure where games are cross-generational, and that second camp wants that to be as long as possible. And if you ask me how I feel, it really depends, right? Between the PS4 and PS5, I think they handled it completely wrong. The PS4 was underpowered when it came out. That's basically the entire reason we had the PS4 Pro. They used aging hardware for the PS4. They sat on it for a long time, delayed the release because of the recession that happened in 2008 that they were still feeling the fallout from. So by the time the generation got to its midpoint, the hardware was underpowered, right? Like Unreal Engine 4 was out, there were new game engines, developers were going crazy with innovation and trying to do new things. I mean, the PS4 generation is incredible for a reason and will be revered that way for a very long time, but it was underpowered hardware. So when you get into the PS5 generation and you have all this untapped potential, it's frustrating because you can see what the PS5 can do with a few specific games like Returnal, for example, and the list of games that do things to the level that Returnal is doing is like tiny. It's you can count it on one hand. Most of the games that came out this generation not only could run on a PlayStation 4, but were shipped on a PlayStation 4. Even ones like Jedi Survivor that felt a little too big even for the PlayStation 5, you could chalk that up to them not finishing the game, and I totally would. They ported that over to the PS4 and it ran surprisingly decent. So like they're still making games from the PS4 era and just cleaning them up a little bit, having them run a little bit better on the PS5. And now you've got the PS5 Pro in the mix that runs games even better, but there are very few games that even push the regular PS5 to its limit. So the PS5 Pro is just like the cleanest image possible. But when it comes to PS5 and PS6, I'm fine with them keeping around the PS5. You know, the actual upgrades that we're getting between generations are shrinking and shrinking because most of the consoles out there are essentially PCs running a custom operating system. They're using AMD's PC chips. Like you can literally in China buy a motherboard with the Xbox Series X APU and use it as the CPU for your PC. Like it's pretty much one-to-one. They're x86 architecture. They're just PCs. So I feel like they're going into it with more of a plan. I doubt they wanted to make PS4 games continue to release as long as they did, but thanks to lockdowns and COVID and everything like that, they basically had to. There just weren't enough PS5s out there. They were being bought up as quick as possible, and the game development pipeline got slowed down because everyone was working from home. They kind of got forced into continuing to support the PS4 a lot longer than they wanted to, but they've been collecting data the entire time. They've been tracking it. They probably have that pipeline all figured out now in 2025. So if they're going to be competing with Microsoft and the whole PC thing, they're going to be competing with Nintendo. The real goal for them is engagement and keeping people playing on the PlayStation ecosystem. It's going to work out a lot better for them if they're supporting the PS5. They're supporting the PS5 Pro. They're supporting the PS6 and of course the eventual PlayStation handheld. There's going to be a lot of options for everyone when it comes to having a device to play PlayStation games on. And I think at that point we'll actually see some pretty healthy discounts on the PS5 and PS5 Pro. Like if they nix the regular PS5 and make the Pro the only one that's sold, but they just call it the PS5 and reduce the price to around $300 or $400, that's going to be a good sort of budget. I know it's not budget because that's an insane amount of money. It's just what things cost right now, but budget option for people who don't want to be there day one for the PS6. They don't want to go through the pre-order drama. They don't want to go through the scalping drama. I don't think it's bad to have that other console around if they're going into it with the knowledge that they're going to continue supporting it. It's really complicated. I wish things could go back to how they were when you got a new console and you saw graphics from it and you were just blown away. You were like, whoa, that is a massive leap. Like from PS2 to PS3, it's like going from PowerPoint to movies, and then going from PS3 to PS4, it's like going from DVD to Blu-ray, right? Like the game graphics got a little bit better. It was mostly just that they were cleaner and people started noticing frame rate more. So people started asking for consistency. PS4 to PS5 is like Blu-ray to 4K Blu-ray. I mean, some people can see the difference, but most people can't. You want your TV filled out, of course, if you have a 4K TV, but like, I think a lot of people play on 1080p monitors still, especially in the PC world. So, you know, there's diminishing returns as time goes goes on. So I'm fine with them kind of carving out a big foothold in the gaming industry and becoming the de facto gamer console, not the Nintendo Switch 2. And if they need to keep the PS5 and PS5 Pro around a little bit longer, at least they're planning to do it this time around, and they're not scrambling or trying to figure out a way to get more people playing games. Like, they obviously are going into it with more of a plan this time. I think that's solid. But speaking of the PS5 staying around a little bit longer and having untapped potential, let's talk about this Witcher 4 tech demo that was shown off at the State of Unreal event. So I didn't tune into this. I saw it after. You could not pay me to watch Unreal get on stage and brag because of how many problems their engine causes en masse with literally every game that uses it. Still, this demo that was shown off was really impressive. It was for The Witcher 4 and it's complicated. CD Projekt Red is notorious for doing this. They create these tech demos for games like The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077 and now The Witcher 4 that look incredible. And then when the game comes out, they go overboard on gaslighting everyone into saying there was no graphical downgrade. But like, if you compare the initial footage, quote unquote, of The Witcher 3 to what we got with The Witcher 3, there was a graphical downgrade. And that's not to say that The Witcher 3 looks bad. It's still one of the best looking games around. It just looks worse than what they originally showed. So I don't know why they do that in the first place. Like, who are you trying to sell on it, right? Like, the graphics that we eventually got were good enough to sell the mass market. Like, it's an incredible RPG that sold millions and millions of copies. You don't need to go that hard on making trailers that will never really show what the game actually looks like. And they did the same thing with Cyberpunk. Again, they're doing it with Witcher 4. They created a little demo where Ciri walks around, she interacts with NPCs, you can hear all their dialogue, you can see all the different NPCs walking around, she interacts with them, like she brushes by their shoulders and stuff, and it looks really impressive. But the most impressive thing about it is that it's running on a base PlayStation 5 at 60 FPS. And I scrutinized it. I'm really good at picking out stutters and frame drops and everything. It's a totally locked 60 FPS. Don't let the hype kind of take over though, because they've come out and said, CD Projekt and Unreal, don't let the hype completely take over, because CD Projekt Red actually did their due diligence for once and came out and said, yeah, this is just a tech demo. This is not actual gameplay footage. It's just showing off the vibe of the world we're going for and the graphical fidelity we'd like to reach. If you're making a giant open world, I don't care what engine you're using, it's not going to look that good. Like, that is one of the best tech demos I've ever seen. But if that's the high bar that they're going to meet, I think it's going to look pretty good. And I was really impressed with how it was all running, but it was constructed in a way that kind of avoids all of Unreal Engine's biggest problems. It's a small area with a big skybox and a big thing happening in the background, but the actual area Ciri's walking around in is obviously very small, so it's going to avoid the biggest problem, which is stuttering when new assets are loaded in. So if there's like a big square, you can load everything in the loading screen that Ciri's going to walk around in, and you won't see any stutters. But if they added a second area and had her transition between those, I would bet, I don't know, conservatively like $100 at least cash, that you would see a big 1 second stutter when that next area is loaded in. So it's kind of trickery, but it shows the graphical fidelity of what can be done with Unreal Engine 5. I hope Unreal just works its crap out. I still have problems with the way this engine looks. Like, the art style was cool. If you just compare this to every other Unreal Engine 5 game though, there are so many similarities. There's a great video of Daniel Vavra, the guy who's running Warhorse Studios, who made Kingdom Come Deliverance and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, talking about how if you want to make a game in Unreal Engine 5, it's so much easier because there's an asset store where you can pay $2,000 and fill out an entire forest on your map, whereas using CryEngine, which is what they used, they spent 2 years fleshing out the forests in Bohemia. So like, it saves developers time, but it results in a game that looks the same as any other game that's using those assets. I would hope that CD Projekt Red, with their money and their resources, don't resort to that, but yeah, like, just going back to the launch of Cyberpunk 2077, I know they fixed it. They have not earned trust. They will earn trust if The Witcher 4 comes out and does not have anywhere near the problems that Cyberpunk had. It's just a bummer though, because you see what happens when there's like maximum effort put into this engine. You can get 60 FPS out of the regular PS5 at 1080p, and I feel like, once again, that's more than good enough for most people. That's 1080p native, so they can upscale it from there to 4K or 1440p, and it will still look really really good. It just sucks that most developers don't put anywhere near this much work into their actual games. Like, yeah, you created a tech demo that no one can play. Take that effort you put into it and apply it to your actual game so we stop seeing these problems. Like, I just saw a news story that Bloober Team is still working on the patch for the PS5 Pro version of Silent Hill 2. You missed the boat, guys. Like, no one's going to go back and buy that game now unless it's like $10. You took way too long and you should have finished the game before you released it. There's no reason for you to be taking this long to fix a product that you sold for $70. It's ridiculous. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the state of play and this video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.